guys, so I'm here today to do my mid-April reading wrap-up. I'm going to tell you about the books I finished, or perhaps chose not to finish, in the first half of April. I can't believe half of April has already flown by. It has been a really strange month, but I have managed to read an assortment of different things, so I'm going to give you my mini reviews of them now. So I'm going to do these in the order I read them, and the first book that I finished in April was Bitch Planet Volume 2. This is a comic book series, although from what I gather, that's actually the end of this series. So I read Volume 1 a while back, and this is Volume 2, naturally following on from the events of Volume 1, and when I looked it up, there appears to be a kind of additional volume of short stories set in this world, but that doesn't entirely carry on the narrative of the first two trade paperback volumes, and I don't think there's any more coming out, so I think that is it. Correct me if I'm wrong, which puts a different spin on my interpretation of the second one, because I really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed both the volumes of Bitch Planet. I thought they were both excellent comic book series, very violent and aggressive in places, but also very satirical. They are set in a futuristic world where there is a separate planet where women are sent who have behaved unacceptably. So it's a rigid patriarchy, and women are supposed to behave a certain way, and if you behave outside of the remits of what is acceptable, you're sent to this prison planet. And there's this whole sort of own ecosystem going on in that planet, and the people that are incarcerated there. And it's very much a feminist comic book series. It's an exploration of patriarchy. It manages to combine futuristic and quite 1960s feels to it, because it has a lot of fake magazine spreads in it showing how to make your man happy and stuff like that. It's really clever and quirky and unique, and I really liked both volumes. But if that's it, I feel a little bit underwhelmed. I feel that was not a satisfactory ending. There certainly was a peak near the end of that second volume, but it didn't feel like it was enough, and so I don't know why it's not being carried on, if it just wasn't popular enough, or if it was always intended to only be 8 or 10 issues long. I can never remember whether there was 4 or 5 issues in a trade paperback. But that does make me a little bit sad that it's kind of done, because I did really enjoy it. I think it's very clever and witty, like I said. Although it is very aggressive, sexual, loads of swearing, nudity. It is not a children's comic book series, but I still think it's fabulous and kind of explores pertinent political issues. So I enjoyed Bitch Planet Volume 2, although I'm a little bit disappointed to see that it seems like that's it for Bitch Planet and there's not going to be any more follow-up issues yet. But the next book that I finished was The Girl Aquarium by Jen Campbell. So this is a poetry collection. It's kind of Jen's debut collection. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, because Jen has had a poetry pamphlet out in the past, but this is her first full collection to be released, and it was published by Blood Axe Books. It's not out yet, but it's out in a week or so, and I adored this. I already knew I would probably love it because I'd read Jen's previous collection, the pamphlet collection, which I really enjoyed, and I really enjoyed Jen's short story collection as well, The Beginning of the World in the Middle of the Night. So if you enjoy those, then I think you will enjoy this, because it's very similar in tone. It deals with a lot of the same themes. She looks at sort of contemporary real life issues and weaves in little sprinklings of magical realism, shall we say. Some of the themes in this one that I enjoyed the most were that of sort of women being on display and being judged by outsiders. She also explores otherness, including queerness and deformity, things I know are very close to Jen's heart, and she does it in a very emotive way. Some of my favourite poems, if you are curious, I have marked. I'm not very good at it. Memories of Your Sister in a Full Body Wetsuit, I very much enjoyed. The Girl Aquarium, which is the title poem, I have made little notes in here. I also very much enjoyed The Doll Hospital, The Angel of the North. A few of these poems poems sort of use a Northern English dialect because that's where Jen's originally from, and I really like that. Mare Lasses and A Song of Herself are some of the ones that I've like highlighted as my favourites. So there's a magic and a surrealness and a etherealness almost about Jen's poetry. It takes a moment to sort of let it settle and for the full point of each poem to kind of fully hit you, but when it does, it packs a punch. And I think if you like eloquent, beautiful writing, if you like Jen's other work, then this is one definitely worth checking out. I then read The Raven and the Reindeer by T. Kingfisher, which is a retelling of the Snow Queen fairy tale by Hans Christian Andersen. This is my second novel by T. Kingfisher. I previously read Bryony and Roses by her, I think only a month ago actually, and loved Bryony and Roses. It was a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. Perfection, and I very much enjoyed this one too. I think one of the standout things I'm finding from T. Kingfisher's writing is her wit. I think she's very witty, and that comes through in both her characters' actions and thoughts and interactions with one another, and she just says a lot of like fun quips that make me go they really tickle me, and I really enjoy that about her retellings. I think they're quirky and witty. And what is also unique about this retelling is that it is a queer retelling, so there is a female-female romance of which the central character is a part of, and I really enjoyed that new twist to an old fairy tale. The fairy tale itself, if you're not familiar with it, because I know it's not like one of the most popular fairy tales, is that the Snow Queen steals away this young girl's friend or sweetheart, this young boy who she's grown up with, and takes him away to her ice palace, and she goes off to save him. So those are sort of the initial events at the beginning of this story as well. But then T. Kingfisher adds a lot of her own details and really brings the characters to life, which I think is what she does the best in both of her fairy tale retellings, is create really vivid, fun characters. And I really like this book. I'm definitely planning on reading more by T. Kingfisher in the future. I then read 2 more books in full and DNF'd another book. So the other books that I finished include The Time Travel Diaries by Caroline Lawrence, from the author of the Roman Mysteries series. So if you've not heard of Caroline Lawrence before, although I'm sure many of you have, she is most famous for writing children's books involving time travel where the characters travel back to antiquity, and this is in those veins. Our protagonist in this book is a young boy called Alexander. He's of Greek heritage, he lives in London, and he is sent back in time to Roman London, or Londinium, and he has gone back in time on a mission from this sort of historical enthusiast billionaire who's obsessed with the bones of this Roman girl that they found during a dig. He wants somebody to go back in time and learn more about him and learn more about her for him, and it has to be a child for time travel science reasons. And that is where our young man goes. This book is just great fun. It is a middle grade book, if I haven't said that already, so it is for children, and I think I would have particularly loved this when I was a kid, but was just a good fun read even as an adult. One of the things I liked about this book as well is that she does not shy away from the darker side of Roman Britain, kind of where life would have been a struggle for people, the violence of things like the gladiatorial games. I love that she didn't try to sugarcoat ancient Roman culture or any of that, including things like slavery, and I generally just really like the way that she depicted antiquity. I think books like this are fantastic because they can really give people a feel for and an introduction to ancient history, and hopefully encourage some young people to learn more, or if not, just enjoy learning about it in this book. It's a good fun adventure. Obviously I won't say much more about the plot because that would be spoilers. It's fast paced, fun, and Alexander has some great adventures in Londinium. I then read a YA mystery novel, and that is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I really enjoyed this book. If you've been watching my channel for a few years, you might know that I do love young adult mystery thriller books. I have a whole video on the topic recommending to you some of my favourites, so I will link that in the description box if you're interested in more young adult mysteries and thrillers. But I really enjoyed this. I thought it was like a combination of like Veronica Mars meets One of Us is Lying with a sprinkling of Pretty Little Liars. You know, it just kind of nailed that genre, and if you're into that genre, this is a great example of it. This follows our character Pip, who is a like A-grade student at school. She you know, is like a real nerd. She wants to go to Oxford. She has big plans for her future, and she's really into her schoolwork, and she's basically doing a project for school that she had to pick a topic for, and she decided for that project to look at a murder that happened in her town about 5 years previously. Now everyone actually believes that this murder was solved, that they knew who did it, and that person committed suicide. It was supposedly the boyfriend of the victim. But Pip is not so convinced and decides to do some digging of her own, and naturally gets embroiled in the mystery of this 5-year-old case, and whether the murderer is still out there, or whether the original story is correct version, or if there's something in between those two options. And she ends up involving the supposed murderer's brother as well, because he doesn't believe that his brother did what everyone thinks he did, and it is just great fun. It is well paced, you know, it's fast paced, and although it's quite a chunky book for a young adult mystery, I think it's one of the longer young adult mysteries I've read, it never feels dull. There's always something to grab your attention, you know, the pacing is just perfect. There's always like a new thread to the mystery, the addition of some new tension, and I loved it. I thought it was great fun, and perfect for those of you that like, and perfect for anyone who enjoys their young adult mystery novels. I think one of the things I like about young adult mysteries is that they have a lot of the tension and the mystery of like an adult thriller, but they also have like some of the more cheerful, softer sides of life in there too, like friendship and relationships, that I think just generally makes it less depressing to read than sometimes I find adult thrillers are. So yeah, I will also link that video down below if you're interested in the genre at all. But the book I didn't finish was actually an adult mystery novel. I wouldn't necessarily call it a thriller. It was a historical mystery called Crow Garden by Alison Littlewood, and I really wanted to love this book, guys. If you saw me talk about it in recent TBRs or haul videos, you would have known that I had such high hopes. It was a book I picked up on a whim in the bookshop, and unfortunately it just wasn't really for me, and I feel very much like I don't want to waste my time with books that I'm not fully into if there's not something really compelling me to get to the end of it. Now this book is set in the 1800s, and one of the things that drew me to it was that it deals with hysteria. So it's set in a mental asylum. We follow the perspective of a young, new, enthusiastic doctor who has his own theories about the treatment of mental health, and he wants to be really helpful, and he's a bit naive, and he goes to work at this asylum where a new patient has just been introduced, and he becomes her physician. She is a woman who has been left there by her husband, who says she is dealing with hysteria. Now that premise I really like, because I really like the exploration of hysteria, but it was a bit more like a dramatic mystery than an exploration of the historical treatment of hysteria for me. Like, I think from where I got to in the story, it wasn't really going in the direction I wanted it to. So for that reason, it wasn't the book I had thought I'd bought or wanted to buy, and instead was a book I wasn't as interested in. I didn't really enjoy the perspective that it was from. I think I'm learning that if I read historical books that deal with hysteria, I want them either to be multiple perspective or to be from the woman's perspective, because I find it a little bit hard to jive with the perspective of the doctor himself. I also found it a little bit overwritten, so I completely get what the author was going for, and it worked sometimes, that she was trying to write in a kind of 19th century style to honour the time period that it was set in, but I think sometimes it became too heavy-handed and overwritten, and that again stopped me from fully immersing myself in the story. So unfortunately I just decided to let this one slide and move on to other things. I got to around page 100. But those are all the books that I read in the first half of April. I hope you have enjoyed these reviews. Let me know if you have any thoughts on the books I have mentioned in this video, and until next time, happy reading. I'll see you all again soon. Bye guys.